This podcast is brought to you by Mend, a course in radical self-acceptance and body kindness, with yours truly, Rebecca Scritchfield and Rosie Molinary, author of Beautiful You. Now, you guys might remember Rosie from an earlier body kindness podcast. I hope you have read her amazing book, Beautiful You. I'm so excited to have her join me on this journey so that we can help you heal the most important relationship you have, and that's the one with yourself. You see, too many of us believe that there's something wrong with us that we need fixing. We deny ourselves experiences that we crave because we need to be smarter, smaller, partnered, or something different than we are right now in order to be worthy to show up in life unapologetically. We so profoundly believe in our brokenness that we can't see the ways in which we are already whole. Join Rosie and me. Our course starts on March 14th, and we would love to see you there. It's 6 weeks long, and it includes a Facebook group and a live interactive call with us, as well as content and self-reflection that you can do on your own time. For more information, visit bodykindnessbook.com/mend. That's bodykindnessbook.com/mend.
That was my first unofficial trip because I'm actually the daughter of a Weight Watchers leader. So, I got my introduction very early on because my mum used to run the meetings and she was a really busy working mum. So sometimes she'd be running her meeting and my little sister and I would sort of be playing in the next room of the sort of church hall where it was. But one night, very randomly, the lady that weighed everybody, she said to me, I was like helping pack up all the booklets and stuff. And she said to me, "Oh, do you want to get on the scale?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And I was already at 8. I was quite a tall, sort of athletic kind of kid. I was, maybe a little bit chubby, but nothing to worry about. And so I hopped on the scale and she was barely not even 5 foot tall. And I remember she saying, turning to her mother and saying, "Sharon, she weighs almost as much as I do." And I just remember this feeling in my stomach like, oh, there's something wrong with me here.
That was Shauna Reid. Guys, Shauna is actually the producer for Body Kindness, and she is one of our 2 guests on this special episode I have today with Bernie Salazar, where we're kicking off National Nutrition Month and a focus on a podcast series where we are going to discuss some intersections of body kindness and nutrition. And of course, no dieting. So this is actually the first time Bernie and I have had a chance to get together to talk about what's happening with Weight Watchers and their plans to have the weight loss program for kids this summer. And so we share information about that. And when everything was going down, Shauna got in touch with us and said, growing up, I have been to Weight Watchers numerous times. And she just said, "I really have some things to share. I hope I can come on the show." So of course we said yes. And I'm really looking forward for you to hear our conversation. She is toward the second part of the show. So you don't want to miss that. Listen for the whole time so that you make sure you get her wisdom in there. And then before she comes on, we also talk to Whitney, who is a registered dietitian, and she is actually in my Learn and Grow Mentor program. So I mentor fellow registered dietitians in the anti-diet and health at every size approach. And she also was very touched by the idea of what food and bodies are coming to mean in our culture. And she wrote a letter and asked if it was something that she could share on the air. And I was more than happy to give her some space to have a conversation with us. So I really look forward to sharing this episode with you. Before we get started, just a couple things. The Spiral Up Club 3-month program is still available if you go to bodykindnessbook.com/spiralup. And for $199, you can join us on a 3-month trial. You can extend it for access to the full year if you love it. And I hope you do. But plenty of people are in the group, in the Facebook group with the private prompts. And we're really working on a more connected way to share with each other the highs and lows, ask for help, support, and really bring body kindness to life in our own lives and sharing together. So if you're thinking of getting some more community type support and more interactive support with me, you'll definitely want to check out the Spiral Up Club. We also do Facebook Lives, and everything is behind a secure password for you to do your own private reflection and journaling as well. So that website again is bodykindnessbook.com/spiralup. And then also for a limited time, Rosie Molinary and I are so proud to launch Mend. It's a course in radical self-acceptance with body kindness. And I mentioned that in the very beginning, but that URL is bodykindnessbook.com/mend, MEND, bodykindnessbook.com/mend. Hey, Bernie, what's up? How you doing?
Becca, I'll tell you what, I am super excited because I hear that March is your month, and I want to make sure we're celebrating you because it is National Nutrition Month. Yeah!
So every month it's National Nutrition Month, which I guess is, there's a theme through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I don't know if the average person even really knows, but there's a little excitement by the Academy for Nutrition and Dietetics. And there's a Registered Dietitian Day. So, where we celebrate fellow RDs. And it is a little bit of fun, but it's like food and nutrition in diet culture can also be stressful. And just, in my experience, people are wanting to be free from diets, and yet I still want to be healthy. So everything they do still looks and feels like a diet because they're still not flexible enough. And so it can be food can actually be really problematic. And I think, I'd really like to talk about it on the show today.
No, I think it's great. Food definitely is one of those things in my life, especially prior to becoming part of the Body Kindness podcast, at least being a regular guest here, where I really built up a lot of anxiety, nervousness, and even pain around it. So I think this is great. I think it's time that we kind of start talking about some of this, especially for the listeners out there who might be feeling the same thing. And for those who aren't, that's great as well. I'd love to hear their story. So
Bernie, you used a really interesting word to me. You said that it's a source of pain. And so I would love if you wouldn't mind maybe kind of sharing some of your past experiences and thoughts about food and eating. And it would be nice to maybe talk about where you are today with it as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, I guess we can talk about prior to my experience on the show, then post experience on the show, and then current experience with food. So prior to my time on the show, there was always that maybe you shouldn't eat that, it's not so healthy type of deal, but it didn't really affect my day-to-day the way that it did post experience on the show. So yeah, there were things where I would assign good and bad labels to prior to the show, but I wouldn't dislike myself for taking part in that, especially food that had sentimental and emotional meaning, say around holidays and particular favorite dishes that my family prepared. There was just no second guessing that this was the time of year we were going to enjoy them, and that was okay. Post my experience on the show, this horrible feeling of, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be eating this. I know what this food did to me in the past as far as blowing my weight up, just really assigning this supervillain role to the food. I remember going a number of holidays and years not enjoying or even tasting some of the dishes that were very synonymous for me and my family with some of those holidays. So that was definitely a point of shame and pain. And then the couple times that maybe I did try to get away from that and have a piece of this or have an extra helping of that or a helping of that, inevitably I'd have a family friend or a family member be like, man, wow, look at you getting into it,
Oh, really?
So it wasn't
kind of like that kind of sounded like a rebel, like being bad.
Yeah, like, look at you. Yeah, good for you. You're finally kind of getting into this, and like participating in eating this again, and then all of a sudden it's like one of those like, I was caught, like, oh my gosh, you're right. What am I doing? But what it led to was shame. It led to pain. It led to closet eating. It led to, thank goodness it didn't, for me, lead to any type of bulimia. But I wouldn't be lying if I said that didn't cross my mind. I just can't throw up, I mean, and I say that knowing that we may have listeners out there that are battling that and very sensitive to it. It's just something that I physically couldn't do. Doesn't mean that I didn't think about it. And that's why when we talk about food and nutrition, I'm really doing my best to be super open, because, those thoughts, no matter how fleeting and fast they flashed in my mind, they flashed in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I have a few thoughts on that. One is when you talked about, oh, well, this food is going to blow me up, right? Like that's the thought of a disordered mind, because really you were weight suppressed and your body needed energy, right? So it's like it was twisted thinking this food is the problem as opposed to my restriction is the problem.
Absolutely. And that's where I definitely was, again, prior to the show, I kind of had those labels, but I didn't feel bad about it. Post show, it was painful. The whole second guessing what your body's asking for, participating fully in the wonderful emotions that can come from having a great meal.
Heck yeah. It is rewarding to enjoy a delicious meal.
Yes.
And if you're so worried that there's something on that plate that's going to hurt you, you will just not engage at all,
Oh, you hit it on the head. It's not even about, and the little bit of engagement that you do have at, let's say, a family function revolved around what you were or weren't eating. So then it was placing more emphasis on it. So not only was I not talking to grandma about how great her dish was, I was trying to make excuses to anybody that was around me as to why I couldn't indulge that particular day. Oh, I'm training for a race. Oh, I'm trying to do this. I might have a photo shoot, going to my high school reunion. I mean, any excuse that I could come up with, I would throw out there just to try to justify the fact that I wasn't present.
Well, and that happens with people who are chronically depriving themselves of energy. You get to a point where you have to hold on because your body is fighting back with cravings and urges to eat because it wants to maintain a higher weight. And so here you are, fearful of food, resisting it, digging in hard. And so you're so mentally distracted from enjoying your life, enjoying your life and enjoying some food. And because at all costs, you need to worry about your weight, your size, your body. It's completely the opposite of health.
Yes. And so today, I'm really happy to say that, I am in a different place, one that I consider to be a lot better. I definitely view food as something to nourish me, not just physically. I don't associate it with the reason or villainize it for outwardly what my body is appearing to look like in the mirror. I just respect food a lot more and I enjoy it more. What I say by respect it is I respect the place that it holds, not only in its ability to provide me nutrients, but in its ability to heal me in other ways and to contribute to my well-being. I'm giving it more credit than I ever did before. And it's a really nice thing. If I'm with family at an event and a lot of preparation goes into a particular dish that brings us joy as a family, I'm going to make sure that I'm present and enjoying that, and that the focus isn't necessarily all on the dish, but I give it its place at the table and then participate in meaningful conversations about everything, about life, and the food happens to be a beautiful backdrop for what is going to come as far as a meaningful interaction with my family. I find that I enjoy my food a lot more. I give thanks a lot more. Some people pray over their food. I think that's cool. I do. That's maybe separate from what we're talking about. That is something that we do. But while I do that, I also think about what that food is giving me. the nutrients it's giving me. I break it down sometimes, and it's fun. And it's not like I do it every time, Rebecca. I'm not that nuts, but every once in a while I'm like, oh my God, this food is so good. It feels so good going down. I know it's doing good things for me. And when I say that, I'm not saying good things like, wow, for sure this is going to help with my waistline, or it's really going to do this or that. But there's certain food that I ingest, and I know it's doing good things in there because my body asked for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not
the way that I have been ever.
Yeah, like taking care of yourself with food. I mean, I think a lot of times people see it as a dichotomy. Like, if I'm doing body positivity support, then I should only enjoy the things that I restricted on a diet. It's like I should only enjoy double bacon cheeseburgers and nuggets and all these things.
No, absolutely. I love that you're bringing that up, because what I found is when I found that I appreciate and enjoy, like thoroughly enjoy eating quote unquote the healthier things, now that I haven't assigned them that.
Mm-hmm. The moral value.
Yeah, like, oh, I have to eat it. Like I was anti-vegetables after the show for so long, and anti-chicken and anti-lean this and that, like, because it was a chore to get that in my body as I was going through some of the hardest times physically with myself, mentally and emotionally. So afterwards I rebelled and just didn't. I mean, I'm not saying that I went towards anything that was, anyways, I just didn't like the food. I literally still to this day won't do some of the
ground turkey, maybe Jenny O.
No, well, yeah, I do like turkey, but it has its place, right? Like, I'm definitely not going to put it, let's say, in a burger, unless it's a really great burger. But like for me, it was things like I won't do any type of a juice, like a vegetable thing. Yeah. And the truth is, my daughter likes them from time to time, so we'll go to, like, let's say, a juice bar, and she genuinely just loves it. Like, that's it, and it's great. And I still can't bring myself to do it, but I'll try some every now and again. And part of me likes the taste, but part of me also remembers the fact that I overdid it in that type of stuff throughout the experience post show.
I mean, I think in a ways that's part of your trauma history. Like, food restriction is part of a trauma history. Right? Like the extreme good and bad foods, the extreme forced body changes that led to sneak eating,
Well, not just that. It was also things like, Bernie, grow up. You're not going to like everything you put in your mouth, like, just suck it up and chew it. Like, eat it and let's go, And
so you kind of when you were trying to win the show, basically, sounds I don't know if you identify with the word bully, but it sounds like you were being a little bit hard on yourself. Like, dig in,
Yeah. Well, it was more like, Bernie, why are you thinking that joy needs to come from this? Like, just get it in your mind.
Oh, that's so twisted.
Keep going. And after the show as well, like, it was like, dude, grow up. What do you mean? It's almost like that, like, you hear people say, well, you don't have to love your job. Just go there, get your check, and figure out what else like. That's kind of like food was for me. It's like, hey, you just get it in, go do your workout, and call it a day. Like, are you serious? You need to enjoy this. So that was really sad, and that's the way that I lived for a while. But I think it kind of relates directly to what we've talked about in the past with that whole numbing. Yeah. I grew, as a result of that, I grew very numb to everything, including and especially food. So now that I am in a different place, like, I genuinely am trying things for what feels like the first time, and liking and enjoying them again. And that's fun. And you want to know why? Because I'm not placing restrictions on how I'm preparing them.
Yeah. I love that. Butter, salt.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Bacon.
What right? Like, holy cow, how good, are green beans with a little bit of bacon in them.
Just a little Brussels sprouts? Oh, I love bacon. Bacon and Brussels.
Right? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So those are things that, like, before it was like boiled in water and like, should I drink some of this water? Like, like crazy stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it is just important. A wide variety of people listen to this show, including helping professionals who are at various stages of their understanding of body positivity. And the reality of it is that body positivity doesn't doesn't have to include health because it's a choice on how you want to pursue health. But in what I do as a nutrition and exercise physiologist and whatnot, and I feel like in the themes of this show, I still very much identify with people who are interested in pursuing health and really reframing that to valuing well-being. So that means physical and mental health. And what you eat is definitely part of it, but it's a lot of undoing of diet culture. So it's going from anything rigid, rules-based to more flexible, intuitive eating.
I'm just so glad you're saying this. And I know I'm cutting you off, but I get excited because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, there are things that generally make my body feel better from a health perspective, things that I didn't include for a while. And I'm not talking about the burgers and the pizza. I'm talking about that I literally pushed away items that I enjoyed eating that, gosh, from a dietary or medical perspective, are superfoods or this or that. And I literally pushed, like, if it had super in front of it, like, it wasn't for me. Like, I wasn't playing on that team. Like, I was like part of the villains. Like, yeah.
I want the unsuperfoods.
Exactly. Oh my God, I love it. That's exactly what I would go for. I was hanging out with the, unsuper villain, or the super villain foods. And what I came to realize when I opened my mind and realized that, I could make peace with food, is that there is no good or bad. But I started paying more attention to what actually made my body feel good and function at the level that I want it to. And that did include some of those superfoods who happen to actually taste really good. And good for them for being super, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I want to share. If there's any professionals out there, it was just being able to open my mind up to that, to the fact that food tastes good, like tasting food again, revisiting food that I had shut out. And then also really making peace with the foods that were a part of my culture and my family, and enjoying those foods too, and not feeling like I had to hide or overindulge in secrets or feel like I was missing out on life.
Yeah, I hear you. And we have so much more to talk about in this regard. And we've got a jam-packed show for today just because so many things are happening. We have a couple of guests planned for this show, and we're going to go ahead and call our first guest now. And I just want to let you know a little bit about who she is. So she's a registered dietitian, and her name is Whitney Hightower. And she is actually one of my mentees. So I have a mentor program for registered dietitians, and she's the assistant director at Keene State College Dietetic Internship. And so the dietetic internships are things that it's like a step in the process to become a registered dietitian. And so she's working on learning about body kindness, weight inclusive care, absorbing the research, implementing it in her program, which is all wonderful for the future of our profession. And she is also a podcast listener, and she reached out after we were doing some work in our group that she felt was impacting her. And she wrote this beautiful letter about food and her body. And I asked her if she would come on and read the letter, and then we could talk to her about it for a little bit as we're doing this month of nutrition focus, and we could kind of bring in this body connection and just someone who is willing to share a bit of their history with food and their body and everything like that. So we're going to give her a call.
Awesome.
When I was growing up, I learned of food's power and place. It was deeply rooted in my culture and upbringing. It had the power to bring people together, and it was always the center of our celebrations. It was also very central to our concerns. Chronic disease and eating disorders were the elephants in the room that no one talked about, but they tainted our time together. Conversations around the table often led to talks about how bad we were, but how good we would be tomorrow. And it was always hard to enjoy food without anxiety. Food was counted and measured and evaluated, commented on, compensated for, and ultimately hidden. And bodies were as well. They weren't always celebrated. They were usually controlled. Favorite foods were hidden or not bought at all. And something was often wrong or out of place, right? Felt it was if I wasn't trying to be better, and better always meant smaller. As I reflect on this years later, and I think back about my times, many times, joining programs like Weight Watchers, I realize now that for me, dieting has always been a way to get out of the spotlight. If I was demonstrating my commitment to bettering my health, my family and friends laid off. Even if comments persisted, they were often manageable because I had evidence to support my belief that I was okay. And simply saying it wasn't enough. I needed to prove it. I needed to prove that I wasn't worthy of being the center of attention, that I didn't have to be their poster child for before and after. Dieting provided a way for me to hide. And that is until I started to benefit from being in a smaller body. By the time I was 20 years old, I'd been dieting for about 5 years, most of the time weight cycling with the same 40 pounds. And bigger bodies were meant to be smaller bodies after all. And that belief was modeled in everything growing up. When you attained a smaller body, you were seen as a better version of yourself. And I believed this. I felt like I was a better person for being a smaller person, for taking up less space. And I learned to distrust food very quickly and ignore my hunger. At Weight Watchers, I was told that if I was hungry, I should eat Tic Tacs or drink water or take a bath and ignore my hunger until it went away. Any sense of fullness or hunger were ignored, and instead, meals were replaced with points and they were timed to workouts. And I became this beacon of light, gleefully sharing my accomplishments. I was praised and celebrated for my lower weight. And it was a lot of pressure, especially as a teenager. And I decided to pursue a career in nutrition and dietetics around the age of 19 because I wanted to help people heal their relationship with food. And it took nearly a decade longer for me to realize that I was just continuing to give people food rules. And I thought it was going to empower them towards behavior change, but it didn't work. It never worked for me. So why would it work for my patients and clients? I was at an impasse and I felt like a fraud as a dietitian. I've since found a home within the non-diet and health at every size community, and I feel excited about my job again. I'm a dietitian who has experienced life in both a smaller body and now in a larger body. And I do believe that my smaller body was the product of restriction and overexercise. I have given up chronic dieting, but eating regularly was never an issue for me, and it's challenging now. Eating enough on a regular basis wasn't a problem. I prioritized mealtime, and I struggle to do that now. Being celebrated at a lower weight, but not at a higher weight, does something to you. It makes you feel like something is wrong with you, like your life is less noteworthy in a larger body. People don't talk about my body now, or my eating habits, or movement preferences. They obsess over them if they think that's what's led to a smaller body. They talk about those people's bodies and their lack of balanced nutrition and movement. There's something infuriating, but also comforting almost about being and not being in the direct line of fire, of their attention. I almost feel safer in a larger body, like I can somehow be a better advocate for my clients and patients. But I feel like my body is marginalized at times. Some days I look down on myself and long for when I was more disciplined. I'm actually afraid of my life because of the potential weight change that might result. My natural tendency is to always associate healthy change with dieting, and that makes me miserable. Beyond that, I don't want people to talk about me the way they did when I dieted and when I was smaller. I don't want to be their before and after poster child. I resent the high horse that I rode as a thin nutrition student. And I refuse to be that type of dietitian again. But in some ways, I feel like I'm not living my best life. There are changes I want to make, like building up endurance and stamina to run again, but I feel like something's holding me back. I want people, clients, patients, my students, my family, to look at me and think, hey, she's in a bigger body, and she's successful and beautiful and capable, and so I know I can be too. I almost feel as though I'll be betraying some more evolved part of me if my body changes. Diets have a voice in my head. It's the voice of family members telling me that weight loss is about health and that it's okay. And that voice is quiet and even silent until I start making healthy choices and start exercising. there are parts of my life that I feel like I'm missing out on, but I don't know how to maintain peace and not fall into that diet mentality while also making these changes.
Wow, Whitney, seriously, thank you for sharing. It was really helpful to get a full picture of your history. And Bernie and I were just talking about, it seems that some of the difficulties you're having right now, Bernie had when he got off the show. What are your thoughts, Bernie?
Oh my gosh, I just want to thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely relate with a lot of what you just put out there, and I applaud your bravery, and I think it's so awesome that you're working through this and that you understand, gosh, what's going on. I don't know. And I say this lovingly, if I was told some of the things that you were told, especially like with, let's say with Weight Watchers, I would have had the best smelling breath and the cleanest body in the world.
I did.
I'm telling you, yeah. And some of the things you said just about how you want individuals to see you as this or that, like just in you sharing that letter, that's exactly the image that was in my head while you were reading it, just so you know.
Yeah, it seems to me that you're still struggling with the inner critic still has more power over you because it's telling you that you need to seek external validation that you have a right to exist in your current body and that you are a knowledgeable, educated, registered dietitian nutritionist and that you don't need to basically have an eating disorder or disordered eating patterns to sort of earn this trophy of a smaller body where you're not meant to be.
And if I can jump in, something that was talked about a while back was just the way that our children view us, right? Like our children don't view us, and this is all going to tie in, I'm not crazy. Our children don't view us as deficient or see maybe some of the flaws that we think they see. And I can guarantee that your students don't see you that way. If anything, just the fact that you're so aware that this is something that you're working through, to me, is awesome and definitely deserves the place of a role model and someone who's really doing the work that they need to in order to make this field and this world a better place.
Well, thank you so much. It means so much to hear you all say that because I have so much respect for your individual journeys as well. And, I recognize that every intern who I work with, their lived experience in their body is going to have an impact on the type of professional they are. And so I feel this responsibility to model body positivity, to provide perspective on nutrition when we are talking about topics like portion size, bringing in the conversation about, listening to our bodies. I mean, small things like that I know are deficient from their undergraduate experience, but also being really mindful that, some of them may have disordered relationship with their body and with food. And so just treading lightly, I find that, my own experiences really color my perspective as a nutrition professional as well. And I don't know how it couldn't. I really don't know how it couldn't.
Yeah, it can't. And I know you don't have a ton of time with us today, but I can't let you go without saying one thing. And that has to do with also the power of your vulnerability and sharing that I can keep this voice quiet if I eat a certain way, right? But the second I start, at least this is how I heard it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the second I start reaching for kale, quinoa, and grilled chicken salads again, it's like, oh, good for you. You're turning over a new leaf, or, and that hurts because that's not who you're trying to be. And so you're struggling with reframing, quote, healthy eating patterns because of the harm from past diets. Is that accurate representation?
Yeah, absolutely. I just associate those behaviors and even foods and exercise patterns with really black and white thinking. And it's hard for me to find that balance. And absolutely. And it actually comes down to even an issue of, my body and my choices were commented on and evaluated for so many years. And even as a dietitian, like so many of us comment and talk about bodies and food for so long. It's like you just want to get away from it at some point. And I don't want people talking about me as if it's this abstract concept, like a case study. Like I am a real person with experience, and maybe I just want the chicken salad, and it's not related to a desire to be smaller.
Oh my gosh. I can't thank you enough. I'm over here stumbling on my words just because I thought your story, and I think your story is so powerful. I think that, I don't know if you've shared this, how your thinking goes with students or with colleagues, or if you're even comfortable, or if you ever want to. I think it would be such a wonderful thing. And you're absolutely right. You had commented even on not doing certain things or that you want to do. And I would love to unpack more about that. I know that you're on a strict time limit. I want to respect that, but I just wanted to let you know that I resonated with so much. And I do feel like, gosh, it's great to have you out there. It's great to hear you. And it's good to know that you think about these things. And there's no doubt that your colleagues and your students are in really good hands. And if you continue to have these types of conversations, it's going to be just incredible, again, for so many people that you're not even realizing you're going to impact in a positive way.
Well, thank you so much.
And Whitney, just a quick tip from me. Start with reframes are helpful when you start with some journaling about why. So think about what's my why for movement? What sounds like a better life to me? What is it that I enjoy about it? Why I'm interested in it? What would I be interested in? Spend some time reflecting. And the truth is, we don't control our thoughts, but we can notice them. And even if you just neutrally say, thank you, mind, but right now I'm really focusing on my personal interest in running again, and I'm noticing things in nature. And actually, your mind will keep you avoiding the very things you want to do when it has its power over you. So just by taking action in line with your values will help with that. And you will see the reframe happen. But that's what I think is the bigger kind of cultural issue, whether it's what do we practice as dietitians? We really do kind of hold up individual foods as good or bad. And dieting can be harmful, is harmful, but that also this idea of, I think we need to shift the conversation toward patterns of well-being and self-care that includes all kinds of foods that you love, no matter what's on the label. And the label we need to lose is the label of individual foods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a conversation that I'm having with my interns, and with them today during a presentation. A lot of my job is actually serving as the RD preceptor. So as the assistant director and field supervisor of this internship, one of my main responsibilities is precepting in the community. And so I work a lot with reframing the conversation around healthy behavior and getting away from this idea of black and white and good foods, bad foods. And, it's interesting to walk through that process with interns, knowing that, for so many years, I categorized foods that exact way, and how people do it on their own naturally. They don't need someone coming in and doing it for them. So how do we reframe this conversation? So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Appreciate it. And Rebecca, what you shared just resonates so much. Let's just get out there, start taking action. And Whitney, be kind to yourself along that journey. That's just coming from personal experience. You had mentioned the running or the endurance or this or that. I know that when I also took a step back and appreciated my body for where it was and what it was doing at that time, it just took so much stress as to where I needed to be or where I was once upon a time. And I was able to really connect with myself in a way that I hadn't over so many years of thinking I should have been at a certain place.
Oh, man. Yeah, you're speaking my language. I can totally relate to that. So, yeah, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, Whitney, for the conversation. How can people find you and follow you and get in touch with you and such?
You know what? Anyone can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay,
I would be happy to chat more. I'm on Instagram as well, but I sort of use it for professional and personal purposes. So LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Cool. I'll find that link and include it in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Man, Rebecca, what a great and powerful guest Whitney was. I related with so much of what she shared, especially the fact when she shared about how people tend to want to talk and praise your body when you're at that thinner ideal, and how nobody really wants to bring it up, or it's not the center of attention, or it is in a different secretive way, like quote unquote, like, oh my gosh, kind of way when you're at a different weight. I thought it was so cool of her to be able to share that. And there was so much I had to say. I know she was getting ready to head out and get an obligation, but.
Yeah, one of the things that I was interested in that we didn't get a chance to talk about further was kind of like how she was the good girl when she was doing the diety thing. So that's how she got congratulations and recognition. Yeah. And now she realizes that as a source of pain. And that's part of the reason why it's like she is genuinely interested in like these, what she knows as a dietitian, like knowledgeable, like balanced eating patterns and joyful movement. But it feels like harm to her. And so she's trying to work her way through what she knows to be factual, her lived experience, healing old wounds around that. And I just think that, I mean, for anyone who has been through chronic dieting, I know they can relate, but that she is a registered dietitian. It's not a knowledge deficit. It's the ways in which we're harmed when we're younger, or by feeling not good enough, by being told we're not good enough, and how that can still haunt you for years to come. And she is experiencing weight stigma. The fact that she feels like at her higher weight, she's more invisible and less loved. So, and it's just an ugly face.
Well, and I also heard, and maybe I heard this wrong, was, at certain times too, she doesn't want to reach for quote unquote what's healthier, because she wants to make sure that she's not viewed as the RD that goes towards the healthy. Like, if you enjoy a good salad, eat a good salad. Yeah. Like, if you're RD and you're into body acceptance and body kindness, like, you're not a jerk for eating good. And that's where I feel like someone like my story, my backstory, we almost have an advantage. Like, that definitely isn't what I feel when that's not my thought. Like, man, if I eat this salad, people are going to think I'm a fake,
Yeah. It's just the individual. I think that's what it is. It's a way that weight stigma shows up for us, right? We look at individual foods and make a judgment about a person's health, about their patterns, about, whatever. It's judgment.
Yes. Especially, yes. And what I learned from her interview was how connected we all are, even though that story may be different. We're so connected. So any listener out there, I'm sure that you have your stories that you can relate to, either mine or Whitney's or Rebecca's. And we're definitely in this together. I think it's so powerful that she shared that. I hope she continues to share that. And I hope she realizes that she is awesome for even taking this on, because this is a personal thing that she's choosing to do, and there's so much strength in that.
Yeah, and just that we are all on a journey, and we all have interesting food and body stories, and the more we share, I think the more we feel like we do have in common. It's not about comparing one person's experiences to the other, but just noting that we have to ask ourselves, how helpful is it when we have this cultural ideal that there is one size, weight, and thin body that we should all be trying to achieve. And if we don't participate, then we lose social capital. And if we don't naturally conform to that ideal, we lose social capital.
Yes. And she made a good point. She said, you know what, when I was younger, she had mentioned Weight Watchers and how she felt better when she was an ideal weight. And speaking of Weight Watchers, I'm just going to bring this up and I'm going to let you do your thing. You brought it to my attention. I just want to reiterate it here to our listeners. They have just announced a program targeting teenagers, giving them, I believe, 6 free weeks. If they want to join for free, you can be a part of Weight Watchers. And I say that very
sarcastically.
Yeah, I mean, my emotions are getting the best of me on this podcast today. I'm stumbling over words. I'm disgusted. Let me just leave it there. I'm going to let you vent, and I'm going to tell you why I'm disgusted and really mad at you, Weight Watchers.
I actually am more than comfortable just letting you. I'm intrigued by I'm disgusted. So let's take the Bernie rant.
I'm disgusted by Weight Watchers is because what are you doing? You're targeting our most vulnerable group. I was a larger teenager. I was a larger child. I was a larger teenager. I was a larger adult. And yes, were there conversations about maybe you should join this weight loss program or that weight loss program? And man, does that stick with you? And what does that tell our kids, that you have to be a certain size to be worthy? Are you really going to try to mask it behind you're going to be the educator on how kids should live a healthier life? You know what you're doing is getting a vulnerable group that you're going to be able to have as part of your program and make dollars off of the rest of their life, that are going to inevitably weight cycle, think that something's wrong with them because they are going through puberty and are living lives in different stages. I'm really disappointed because I'm going to put this out there. I didn't think it was a horrible program. It's not one that I would have done, but I didn't think it was harmful. I didn't think your program was harmful, Weight Watchers. And now I totally do. And I'm so sad that that's the direction you went in. And as a teenager, a former teenager, I can tell you that all of the education surrounding what's good food, bad food, has no bearing or did not help me in any way. It was me understanding that I am worthy and I'm a good person no matter what size I'm at. And I definitely don't see you coming from that perspective. I'm just disgusted.
Yeah.
I really am.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was awesome. Thank you. I like the anger. See, I coached you after the Bob Harper anger.
Like, and you get a complex, and you get a complex, and I'm giving you a weight complex. Everybody gets a weight complex.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, my heart is breaking. I did Weight Watchers actually in my dieting days. I did it online around my wedding, and the other week I was cleaning out some boxes in my room and found an old journal, and it was around when I was getting married, and there was an envelope in there. And the envelope had my scale weight to the 10th of a pound. And if it was down, it had a smile face, and if it was up, it had a frown.
And this is like free emoji.
I know. It breaks my heart. I know. It breaks my heart, to think about. I mean, I will make myself have positive memories of my wedding, but I do remember daily weighing and counting the points and all this stuff. And it just wasn't a positive experience for me. I got the Washington Post assignment. So it was my first freelance assignment for the Washington Post after the news broke. And I just shared a warning to parents on social media because I work with kids and families, and the stats are pretty clear. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a clinical paper that says do not put kids on diets. And it says that diets are associated with the development of eating disorders. And also, I guess quite ironically, I mean, not to me, but to the average person, putting kids on diets is actually associated with increased risk for childhood obesity.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, the more I was told as a child and as an adult that I needed to get skinnier, the larger my body got. And it's just so depressing. So I have two small things I want to share. Like, as a parent, no way, especially to my little girl. Like, you really think I'm going to be the dad that instead of driving her to a fun family activity or to a sport that she chooses or a band practice or whatever she gets into, that I'm going to drive her to Weight Watchers? Like, are you like?
Well, Bernie, you wouldn't, because you're in a healthier place, and that's the exact problem. And I put that in the post, like, that parents, like, what about the parent? Because the parent has to bring the 13 to 17-year-old to the meeting. So the parent is paying, the child gets to come for free. We still don't know, to be fair, we don't know how they're going to run the program. No. Right? No. But that leaves me just more questions than answers. Are the kids in the room with the adults?
Like, how's that going to? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. I get that. But my thing is, and I'm just speaking for myself, as a parent, and I know I'm a parent of a young person, like, my daughter's worth is so much more than her physical appearance. And you know, I would rather be the type of parent, and this takes time, right? And we don't all have this luxury, and we're going to have to prioritize. But I'd rather be the parent that says, hey, listen, if you want to challenge your body in different ways, let's think about how to do that in a positive way. Let's together sign up for, I had mentioned a museum membership. Let's go check that out. We happen to be active while we're looking around. Or if there is a local race or event or concert or something you want to do, let's maybe include some family memory building activities that may also contribute to your wellness. Now, if my daughter wants to be an all-out athlete and run centuries, cool. Okay, I'm not going to stop her either way, but I don't want her to feel as though she needs to go to a program when I know like a program like Weight Watchers doesn't work to just have some type of self-worth. As a matter of fact, I remember a family member who I love immensely had said, hey, listen, if you sign up for this one particular program, it was another weight loss program. And if you lose weight, and this is back in the early 90s, okay? And if you lose a certain amount of weight, I will buy you, at the time, it was the in thing in my area, a pair of Z Cavaricis. I don't know if you guys remember what those are.
Oh, I love Z Cavs. All the belt holes.
Okay, exactly. So here's what happened. And I want to prepare our readers, grab some tissue. I never got a pair of Z Cavaricis. And ironically, I'm okay with it because I don't have the pictures of me in them. So what I'm saying is it all works out in the end. Don't take your kids to Weight Watchers. And if there's questions you have, please feel free to reach out to us, especially Rebecca. There's so much data that supports that this does not work and actually does harm.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple other thoughts, but I want to bring in our next guest and we'll make sure we keep this conversation going. So this is a fun treat. We are actually going to call the producer for the podcast. So her name is Shauna, and she read... Yeah, she read the Washington Post piece and said, "Yeah, I would love to come on and talk to you. I have some stuff to say about that." So we'll give her a call, we'll get her story, and we will continue this conversation about what's happening here to teens and kids in our diet culture. Hey, Shauna, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
Hey, Shauna.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I love obviously working with you on the show production, but you had something very important to say. You said, I'd really like to talk to you more about this because I think people need to hear about Weight Watchers and teenagers. So thank you for giving us your time, and we're going to give you the mic.
Oh, not at all. Your article really got me fired up. I just thought, who better to talk to about this stuff than you? Because, I've read so many great pieces from health professionals over the last week about this, but I was just sort of keen to put it at the perspective of I would call myself a Weight Watchers frequent flyer. Like, I have been there so many times. At the first time when I was 8 years old, that was my first unofficial trip because I'm actually the daughter of a Weight Watchers leader. So, I got my introduction very early on because my mum used to run the meetings and she was a really busy working mum. So sometimes she'd be running her meeting and my little sister and I would sort of be playing in the next room of the sort of church hall where it was. But one night, very randomly, the lady that weighed everybody, she said to me, I was like helping pack up all the booklets and stuff. And she said to me, "Oh, do you want to get on the scale?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And I was already at 8. I was quite a tall, sort of athletic kind of kid. I was, maybe a little bit chubby, but nothing to worry about. And so I hopped on the scale and she was barely not even 5 foot tall. And I remember she turning to her mother and saying, "Sharon, she weighs almost as much as I do." And I just remember this feeling in my stomach like, oh, there's something wrong with me here.
Oh.
And for a whole...
Gosh. Shauna, I'm so sorry. Rebecca, I'm sorry. My reactions are not controllable. I literally picture somebody offering a first hit of a drug to somebody right then and there.
Hey, little girl, you want to get on my scale? For a variety of reasons, and I'm keen to emphasize that dieting and Weight Watchers was not the only ingredient in the cocktail that is my weight journey over the years. But for a variety of reasons, my mother always struggled with her weight, and she eventually stopped becoming a Weight Watchers leader. But then it almost became a thing where the two of us would almost on an annual basis go to Weight Watchers together. And currently I'm at Green Mountain here in Vermont working through their pathway program for binging and their general program. And it's amazing how common a thread it is that mothers and daughters add teenagers going to Weight Watchers together. And so we would do that almost every year. And every year I would come back a little bit heavier than the year before. But because, at least in Australia in the 90s, Weight Watchers was always pitched as the sensible one. Like, it wasn't grapefruit diets, it wasn't pills or shakes. That Weight Watchers is where you learn good nutrition, it was the good one. And I was like, straight A student, very determined person. So it was almost like I saw the failure as all my own. And every time we went back and I was like 10 pounds heavier than the year before, I was like, this time I'm going to win, I'm going to do this thing. But it wouldn't work. And I was thinking about reading all the posts on Twitter and what did I actually learn from my dieting? What did that bring to my teenage life? And what it taught me was how to spend nearly every waking moment of my life thinking about food, even if it wasn't a conscious thought. This is this rumbling background noise about I didn't trust my own appetite. I worried if I was eating too much. I would always be plotting how to get more food. I would start to sneak food. I learned how to very quietly open the freezer in the middle of the night to steal some cookies. And there was just crazy things. In retrospect, I feel like giving my little teenage self a hug, because I would stop eating after recess on Mondays because Monday night was weigh-in. And then after weigh-in, I would eat. And then because tomorrow was Tuesday and I could start again, And if I had a bad number on the scale, I'd be there at school thinking, oh, what a terrible week I had and what a terrible person I was. And then it sort of started spilling into my emotional health. And again, not just because of the dieting, other things were going on. But really, I remember I would be dreading or completely avoiding things like school trips, birthday parties, slumber parties, because to me they were just dens of temptation. And I would be worried about what would be there to eat. Would I eat too much? Would I eat more than my friends? And I just remember slumber parties, people would be talking and gossiping, and I'd be staring at the pizza and calculating how many pieces were left and would it be okay for me to take another one? Do you know what I mean? Or could I sneak one when everyone else fell asleep so they wouldn't see what a greedy person I was? And then as I got older into my later teens, it was limiting my social life. I turned down opportunities. I got chosen to do a exchange trip to Japan, a year in Japan. And I remember actually thinking, oh, that's really nice that they picked me, but I don't want to go to Japan because they're all really tiny and I'm so huge. And I didn't go to Japan. And to this day, I feel really sad about that. But the diet mentality was so all pervasive in my life. And it was I would be with my friends, but I wasn't really there. I always felt very separate and detached from people. And once I left home, went to university, that's when I had unsupervised access to food, and my parents weren't, lording over what I ate anymore. So that's when I really sort of shifted into more extreme binging and restricting, and my weight went up and up in a big way. And I would keep going back to Weight Watchers every couple of years because that's just common sense. Weight Watchers is the
healthy thing to do.
It's the healthy thing to do. And I was still ever more determined because I thought, I want to get that card. If you win, you get a card, And at one point, I managed to stick at it for a longer period. And I did. My high time weight was 350 pounds, and I had lost half that weight over a period of 5 years. And I thought I did it the sensible way. I got a book deal. I wrote about it. I blogged about it. My blog, Amazing Adventures of Diet Girl, back in the day. And I thought I'd solved it. I thought I never got the card because I never reached their very narrow target. But I thought, this will do. But then I just found myself, when life got tough, I would go back to those behaviours because I still had that binge restrict mentality. I'd never sort of addressed the underlying issues. So, and this has only been the last 2 years, Rebecca. I have to say, working with you on this podcast has been a huge shift for me. I remember when the Biggest Loser article came out in the New York Times about the metabolism damage and all that. And I remember you were very kind to let me get on a call with you, and I was like crying and saying, this is what I've done to my body. And you just said very kindly, hey, Shauna, how about you just stop trying to lose weight for a while and be nicer to yourself? And I was like, what a crazy idea. What kind of a crazy idea is that?
No, I just laughed because I had the same response. And Shauna, I adore you. If I thought I was a huge Shauna fan before, listeners, with how amazing she is at the work she does for this podcast, like, I am completely in adoration of you now, because I could relate to so much of what you shared. And you're absolutely right. I want to go back. I wish little Bernie met little Shauna and we just hugged it out, because there were so many things that you shared that I could completely relate to. And gosh, just so eye-opening, right? When we talk about Weight Watchers and what they're doing now, if this doesn't show a glimpse of the fact that that's just not what's going to be helpful for anybody, especially our children, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and I know that a dietitian on Twitter, I can't remember her name, Laura or somebody, she said, not everyone that goes on a diet gets an eating disorder, but pretty much everyone with an eating disorder has dieted. And for me, that is enough alarm bells to say, come on, Weight Watchers, you've got to think about the big picture here. I just felt genuine fear when I heard this news. I'm like, no, leave the kids alone. Yeah.
Well, I think it was powerful that you shared your mom was a leader, and that came from a good place. I was,
of course, it really did,
of a working mother, and at the time, like you said, that was the good diet. And to hear your story, and for you not literally to be attacking of it, because I know Rebecca and I have conversations about The Biggest Loser. You hear her tone towards it as opposed to mine. Weight Watchers, I definitely, before you hopped on, I was literally screaming into the mic. But to hear your very real, very connected, very personal experience with this, like, gosh, like it just reminds me of what I went through on the show, and it's opened my eyes to how sensitive this issue is for all involved.
Mm-hmm.
And
really,
the research is showing that it's not working, especially for children, and that's what I'm advocating here. And Shauna, I mean, I just love that you're sharing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, this all concerns me with respect to the real gaslighting that's happening, because like, you can follow the Wake Up Weight Watchers hashtag on Twitter. People are still using that. That was just a once response Twitter chat in the US. There's an article that came out in the UK because they do plan to roll out the program in the UK, and they reference the hashtag there. Of course, I got hate emails for my article in the Post, and also public comments on my article. And some aren't so nice, directed at me, like, silly, oh, I didn't do my research or whatever. But the gaslighting, in the sense of, Weight Watchers has always benefited from being known as, this is the healthy thing to do. And now that that diets have fallen out of favor, they are, we've changed our program again, right? And so it's like, we don't focus on weight, yet that's in your name. And that is what is keeping people hooked, and is what really bothers me about it, because, I talked to them for the article and over email, and I got basically, yeah, we'll let you know more about the program when we're ready, and we're excited about this opportunity. It's about health, and health has been co-opted by diet culture already, but most people don't realize that. And so because they have internalized weight bias, even if they don't realize it, they are starting from, of course, people want to lose weight and get healthy, right? And so what's the most sensible? What has the best rankings? What has the most science behind it? There's actually no data at all that Weight Watchers is effective in the long term, and when you look a couple years out and you look at the money that you would have to pay, and there's some articles that show, oh yeah, it's a net 2 pounds or kilos, or it's not much as a bottom line. And so it's like, where is this data and evidence? We are just kind of believing this, oh, well, if you're at a higher weight, you must be unhealthy. There must be something wrong with you. You can't control your body. So go into something where you can control. And this is all leading into where I'm angry, like literally at the present moment, and hopefully this will change. But on my article, the most recent couple of comments, one's like, I love that Weight Watchers is reaching out to youth. I started in college and wish I had known about portion control and balanced eating earlier in life. And trust it, it's different. It is not about weight. There's no shame. It's empowering. And then the one after that is, oh, I'm a pleased Weight Watchers customer. It's just guidance toward healthy eating and choices and exercise in some form. My entire parentheses, including preteen granddaughters, family eating habits have changed for the better. And we have all lost weight. So I'm not going to read the whole ones there, but it's like there are people commenting, obviously not truly reading the article to even be open-minded to the research that I've mentioned earlier about dieting being linked to childhood obesity and eating disorders. But as long as Weight Watchers gets to call themselves "We Are Not a Diet," then we can actually read these posts and believe, well, they're not a diet, so then therefore they can't be linked to obesity and eating disorders, and so therefore it's fine. And it's like, I listened to your story, Shauna, and it is just completely maddening and heartbreaking. And I mean, look, I am all for, Weight Watchers exists. It's a publicly traded company. I am all for them going as far as they can, changing the name as far as you can, hire health at every size people to truly make something that is not predicated on your body as a problem. But don't try to say that that's what you're doing now, because you're not.
I could not have said it better, Rebecca.
Amen. My goodness.
Whatever it's called, Weight Watchers, it's not something that I can believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's so many things to argue with. And I just think that hearing your story and just knowing that there is a personal experience, right? I mean, kids, when they're growing, are supposed to gain weight as part of puberty. I mean, you were even that just stepping on the scale, the weight comment, like all of those things, and just how kind of this sort of control around food was normalized for you, even if it had good intentions. I get good intentions, but intent doesn't mean impact. And you're a shining example of that. What was the impact of this weight suppression that happened to you in your teen years? And based on accounts from your story, it was unhelpful. It made you weight cycle, and it may have impacted, where your body is happiest now at as an adult because of harm done as a teen.
Or even you not partaking in that exchange program. Like, Shauna, that resonated with me. I remember being in high school, and of course, teenagers do all types of things. And one of those things in my community and my school was there were always fellow classmates that would go play volleyball or do this. And I never even dreamed of going, because Lord forbid there was a shirts and skins situation where I would have to even think about being exposed in that way. Or never did I go to the beach, or there were just so many things that in ways that my life was impacted because of that weight stigma and how young of an age it was introduced to me at.
That's so true. And I think it reaches so far beyond your teenage years. It's in the last year or so where I've been the ripe old age of 40 now, really diving into this stuff. And there's been a lot of grief about all the things that I didn't do, and and I've had friends tell me things that I did, like as their friend, when I was in my little world of dieting and being depressed and stuff, and that I have no recollection of doing, because my whole world revolved around my body and what I thought was wrong with it, and I would hold myself back from friendships and stuff, and I caused pain to some people, and I'm so glad I've been able to work through that now. But if there's anything we can do to help, I don't have children, but if for parents, if we can help parents and educators and the whole system, like how do we help children accept where they are? Their bodies are amazing. They can do things and they're still growing. We can't mess with, we just can't be messing and making them get on scales and things. Like how do we get them to love food and know how joyous it is to move and exercise without it being for punishment and to make your body smaller? I feel so passionately that we all need to come together with this and stop just trying to make money out of it.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page with you. That's exactly what I was screaming into the mic about earlier. But how wonderful, Shauna, that we are now on this journey, that we understand how this has affected our lives and that we still have time to do those things, and to be kinder to ourselves now. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about some of the things that you're going to be doing and have been doing now, that maybe you wouldn't have done before because of the way you felt or were made to feel about your body. So that's exciting.
Cool.
Well, do either of you guys have, any thoughts or ideas? I mean, I'm interested in kind of like letting the sort of nutrition and exercise pro be silent and listen for a second. But just as a person going through this world who's experienced weight shame, dieting, and all that stuff, and you've made some progress to where you realize that this doesn't have to be about shame and deprivation, that you can take care of your bodies. So what specifically could you see parents, families, teachers, doctors, like what should we be saying and doing that you believe would actually be helpful?
Shauna, go ahead. I'm going to let you start in. You're our guest today.
Oh my goodness. I can only think about what would have been helpful to me, and that would be learning how just to be. Oh, sorry, you're gonna have to edit this out. You don't have any thoughts at the top of your head, Bernie?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's funny.
You know what? And it's funny because I'm telling you, Shauna, when you hear this recording, and I hope this all makes our show, I've stumbled so much because of how emotionally
it is. It's very emotional.
Emotional is for me. So and again, I can only speak for myself, but what I would have loved to have seen is my family rally around activities that were meaningful and created wonderful memories that maybe contributed to what healthy living could look like in a positive way. Like, let's all get in the kitchen and try to take time and make time to prepare meals, or to at least explore ways that food can be fun and not a chore. And I'm coming from a household with a single mother who worked so much to just provide for us. And I know that would have been difficult, but it's about trying to make that time, or about not just preaching how a body should look and what healthy looks like, but actually engaging in activities that were active and that created memories that were meaningful. I guess for me, and being a parent and a relatively new parent, what I'm striving to do is just really bring value to time spent together, no matter how much or how little. And bit by bit and step by step, I think as a society, we need to start understanding that all bodies are beautiful, and start making sure that our publications and the things that we're putting out there are reflective of that. I'm very passionate about this particular thing. What could have been done? I think that it starts with companies like Weight Watchers or any other weight loss thing out there. Like Rebecca said, even though you don't think you're doing it, you are stigmatizing bodies. You are putting out messages that smaller is better, that smaller is stronger, that an athlete looks a certain way, that a model looks a certain way. And I'm so proud that we're going in that direction as a society. Even though it's slow, we've started that. And I hope and will work with Rebecca and you, Shauna, to make sure that this conversation continues, because our children and their health is at stake here.
Definitely. I just think anything we can do for a child to believe that their worth is not dictated by their size, and that there are a lot of different body shapes in this world. I think, the Health at Every Size YouTube video about the poodle science, about I would get every child in the world to watch a child version of that, because we all come in different shapes and sizes, and the more that can be normalized, the better. And then just to learn to find joy in food and movement, I think.
Mm-hmm. I love it. See, it's. I think there is a wisdom there. And it would have to be on a whole other podcast. But, even looking at the challenges when you're too busy, so how time plays a factor, right? Because we all need to do our work to make our money. And how does that interfere with how much time we have in the day? And I think this idea that unless we're doing intense, long exercise, it's not good enough. So then we end up doing nothing, or ways that we could just be more active in our daily lives and enjoy mealtime again, enjoy prep, even if it's simple, that kind of stuff.
Yes. And Rebecca, the reason I'm interrupting you is because when I say things like, try to do activities as a family or get in the kitchen, like, I am so aware that there are families that cannot do that. But hopefully there are ways that you can, whether it's literally putting on a song or singing a song and dancing to it, or if it's at least being more mindful about the time that you're making around a particular item of food that you're eating, that is so meaningful. And I want to make sure I was putting that out there, because I know for my particular family and my situation, what I was raised with was a single parent, and that was extremely hard. But even 5 seconds makes a difference.
Yeah. And like Sandra Ament said on the podcast, I don't care what you do, pick up the unicycle. Anything is better than dieting.
Amen. Shauna, I just sincerely want to thank you so much for sharing your story. You've really opened my eyes to maybe aspects of this that I hadn't considered. Just super powerful. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
And Shauna, can you please let listeners know how they can find and follow you and read your wonderful writing?
Yeah, I'm at shaunareid.com, and you can also follow me on Instagram at Shauna Reid.
Wonderful.
And Shauna, can you do me a favor really quick, and can you spell that out for people like me that just I have problems or think how to get a hold of you?
Sure, it's SHAUNAREID.
Great. Well, we'll put that in the show notes, and I'm sure you won't forget.
Yeah, I'll look that.
Because that's your job.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Shauna, I love you to pieces. Thank you so much, girl.
Thank you very much.
Shauna, so cool talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye, guys. That was fab. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much. Take care. So, Bernie, what'd you think of Shauna's story?
Rebecca, this particular podcast has just been such a roller coaster of emotions for me. I loved her story, and it gave me a perspective that allowed me to place myself in her shoes and not just necessarily come from a place of like, oh, I hate Weight Watchers. There are some very real people that have participated in this program, and I am in no way attacking you. I know that you and I have more in common than you and Weight Watchers have. And it's time that we start reclaiming our true happiness and our true health. And let's do that together. That's where I'm coming from. It's a place where I literally want to reach out and have a huge group hug, because we have and continue to be under attack. And you are, and I'm talking to you, and you know who you are more than enough. And your children are perfect the way they are. Save yourself the gas money and stick home and hug each other and realize that it's going to be okay. That's it. I'm done.
I'm exhausted. I'm emotionally exhausted. No, I know. It's, well, I just think, I mean, look, we're all here, we're all living, and we're all trying to be real and honest. And yeah, I think we have been on a bit of a roller coaster ride today. You know, this is just the beginning of National Nutrition Month. We've got some great shows coming up where we're going to hit on some important issues. I'm going to be talking to another dietitian about orthorexia in dietetics. That's an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. We're going to be talking about diversity in dietetics and why that is really important to truly help the people we serve. And we're going to talk about basically radical dietetics and why it's, good to be rad. But, with respect to us leading it off today, I think what I'm taking away from it is our common humanity and that we all have food and body stories. And it doesn't I felt today I'm not the dietitian expert helping whoever, right? We're just sitting here on some mics, being real, being honest, sharing our experiences. And I think in a lot of ways, revealing pain and reminding ourselves of that suffering that took place and processing some anger with respect to, like I say, that shit ain't right,
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. I mean, when she was speaking, I was thinking of myself. I'm an adult now, and I was bullied and I was victimized, and it wasn't one particular thing or this or that. It was just the emotions that were associated with living life as a child, as a teenager, as an adult in a larger body, and feeling deficient as a result of it. And I wasn't, and I'm not. And these are conversations that we need to be having within our own households as well, because we do have teenagers and children as young as 8 thinking that there's something wrong with them. And who better to talk to your children than you? And it's also going to take work for you to unpack that. And it may take years like it has me. Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
I mean, I think we're all on our journeys, and yeah, and that's what I would say too to parents who are listening, or maybe a friend of a parent. And I just like to say that it's okay, right? It's okay to not be okay. It is okay to be struggling with healthy eating, right? Quote, and want to find the time for movement. And when you make these judgments that those things will then bring weight loss, it's okay to believe that, because that's what culture says. And I think we need to do a lot more permission giving, because when we feel shame about where we're at, we're more likely to just avoid or just do whatever feels the most comfortable, which could be more dieting. And so my recommendation would be I know you love to say give yourself a hug and hug it out, but yeah, a big old hug, permission to be where you are, permission to not have the answers, but using your own inner wisdom. When did ever dieting work for me? What is it that I do know and trust about food and eating that I can implement in my house? And there's lots of great resources. Ellen Satter's Division of Responsibility. That could be a whole show, but it's basically like you decide what comes in the house, and you create meal times for your kids, and they decide how much they eat. And rather than in a restrictive, this is all you're allowed to eat based on calories or points, you're providing a structure based on what's being offered, and also based on when is the mealtime. And there's all these age-appropriate things to follow, but the bottom line is you can actually teach self-regulation in your kids so they don't fear brownies and cupcakes and these things. But there is, I worry that the word moderation has been co-opted by, well, if you have enough points, or if you have, if you've been good enough. But there is a way to help your family around structure where you can feel good. It's just, you don't need to overthink it. You need some time to meal plan and some time to grocery shop. And even that can be challenging. And that's why we don't need to look for perfection. But you should know that there is a way to enhance well-being by accepting yourself, even if you struggle with self-acceptance, by letting your child know that their body is inherently good just by being born. And then by, taking it from there, be on a journey together, thinking about positive, life-affirming thoughts that are focused on well-being and not weight.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. And on, one last note, I just chuckled while you were sharing your story. I don't know why I thought of this, but I just thought of the commercial where Oprah's literally like, and I love bread. Well, Oprah, that's the one thing I agree with you on in concerns to this. Like, I love bread too. And what I mean by that is let's knock it off already.
Let us eat bread.
Let us eat bread. Let them eat bread instead of cake. But Rebecca,
let's eat cake too. That would be restrictive.
Yeah. Oh no. Here I am. I was getting ready for my next thought, and I just mumbled that. But I learned so much from this particular podcast myself. I felt like it was more of a session than it was me podcasting for any particular reason. I hope that our listeners, I hope we offered them food for thought, and I'd love to hear any response that you may have, and both pros and cons for it. I think that if we are open to having very real conversations about this, that's where true change happens.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you said that. I am open to conversation. I'm not open to a lecture, but I'm open to curiosity and I'm open to understanding. So they can email us, sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'm coming from this, right? And I battled this my whole life, and I've been affected both positively and negatively. And I gave an interview the other day, Rebecca, and I sounded like I was up on a pulpit, and I don't want to be that person. But at the same time, I am yearning and inviting people to engage me in conversations so that we can hopefully come to a consensus on what's going to change this for the positive moving forward. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, I love it. Well, we will touch base again after National Nutrition Month and just kind of recap on where we're at and the next area of focus for us in the show. Thank you so much for joining me as always, Bernie, and just keep it up.
As always, a pleasure. And to all our listeners, I love you. Be kind to yourself.
And that's our show. Let's continue this conversation in our Facebook group. Just search Body Kindness Podcast and ask to join the group. We also love ratings and reviews. Please subscribe to the Body Kindness Podcast and give us an honest rating and review. And if you can, tell a friend. If you'd like to support the podcast for the 2018 season, please donate at gofundme.com/bodykindness.